Hello, my name is Leckie-Ewing, and this is my project on Washington, D.C.'s Mount Vernon. Did you ever want to know where George Washington grew up and where he still is today? George's childhood home was Mount Vernon. It was a beautiful estate which is now taken care of by the Mount Vernon Ladies Association. Mount Vernon was where young George lived most of his days as a child. Through George's long career, he was a man of many great things. Being a farmer was his favorite. When George was young, he moved back to the plantation because his father died. The plantation is next to the Potomac River. The story of George Washington throwing a silver dollar across the Potomac River, which is impossible, had its origins in recollection of one of his cousins saying he threw a stone across a much smaller river called the Rappahannock River. Little is known about George's education. Most likely he was taught by a private tutor. The death of George's father made schooling impossible for George. When his father died, most of the estate was left to his half-brothers. The estate was founded by his grandfather. George could trace his family history back to Europe since his great-grandfather John Washington migrated from England. These are only a few small segments through a great man's life. Okay. In 1853, Louisa Bird Cunningham was traveling on the Potomac River and passed by Mount Vernon in the moonlight. Cunningham challenged the women of the South and later the women of the entire country to save the home of George Washington. Between 1858 and 1860, the Ladies' Association put out a newsletter called the Mount Vernon Record. Cunningham's ultimate goal was not to simply purchase Mount Vernon, but to preserve it for the nation. They aimed to spread across the entire country, with each state being represented. The first dollar that contributed to purchasing Mount Vernon came as a result of a speech given at Liberty Springs. That evening a ball was held and the proceeds donated to the Mount Vernon Treasury. That was the beginning of the Ladies' Association trying to save Mount Vernon. Not long after George died, the Ladies' Association has been taking care of the estate. George's father, Augustine Washington, built most of the farmhouse in 1735. At 11,028 square feet and 2.5 stories and a full cellar, the mansion dwarfed the majority of dwelling houses in the late 18th century Virginia. Before George started construction work in 1774, he executed a design drawing showing how he intended the west front of the mansion to look. In his order to Philadelphia architect Joseph Frakeshaw, Washington specified that the weather vane should, quote, have a bird with an olive branch in its mouth. Washington and his architect used a technique called rustication, which is a design used to make a wooden house appear to be constructed from stone by beveling the edges of the siding board to resemble individual blocks of stone. The two-story porch facing the Potomac River is one of the mansion's most memorable architectural features, and was designed by Washington. Since the porch roof was built just a year after the new room addition roof was installed, the preserved shingles are brand new and still have their original red paint. The mansion's basement or cellar played a key role in the movie National Treasure, Book of Secrets. And although there is no tunnel leading from it, it was an extremely important part of life in the mansion. The estate also has a museum with relics from George's lifetime, such as his dress sword, the key to the Bastille, and even his own teeth. The estate also has many animals that are kept and well fed by the Mount Vernon Ladies Association. The estate looks wonderful and preserved to its former glory to when George lived there. George Washington, the estate, and the Ladies' Association go hand in hand to help each other. The Ladies' Association takes care of George's tomb and the estate. George is the only reason people would visit the estate. But I'm forgetting to mention one huge detail about the estate, the Slave Memorial. The Slave Memorial is a beautiful part of the estate. It has a plaque to remember all the slaves that worked on the plantation. You may have wondered why George would have slaves since he was such a great man. He inherited the slaves when he got the plantation and relied on their work. But in his will he declared that the slaves should be freed when his wife Martha died. Thank you for listening to my presentation about George Washington's home, Mount Vernon.